Good evening, ladies and gentlemen. I'm Prabhakar from the Daily Entertainer. In today's program of Prabhakar in conversation with, I'm really proudly privileged to bring a conversation with Kambampati Nachiketa, the Kargil War veteran who prefers to call himself as the soldier. Nachiketa has hit headlines of all newspapers and TV channels when he was captured by Pakistani soldiers during Kargil War and later released with a lot of fanfare. Justifying his name Nachiketa, he has a close brush with death and with the blessings of his parents came back successfully. In today's conversation, we will learn more about Nachiketa, especially the first-hand experience of Kargil War and the traumatic times in captivation. Good evening, Nachiketa. Welcome to our show.
Namaskar.
Tell me something about your family.
Okay, Andy. So, my parents, father Shri K.R.K. Shastri, he retired as a central government employee about 25 years back. Late mother Sri Mati Lakshmi, she was a housewife from a small village in Eluru. She joined him after the wedding when he was working in Nepal. And we mostly stayed in North Nepal, Sikkim, Kashmir, Madhya Pradesh, some time in Hyderabad. Finally retired in Delhi. Most of our childhood was in Delhi only. Two sisters I have. Elder sister is a scientist working for a private company in Hyderabad, and I have a younger sister who's into energy healing and theta healing, who stays in Delhi. And I got married in 2001. My wife is Prashanti. She's into the education field, and I have two kids. Elder son is doing BTech Computer Science in JNTU, and younger son is in class 10th Delhi Public School. That's my family.
Was your childhood normal like any other middle class family, South Indian family, or did you have any fancy ideas of becoming a pilot from childhood?
So, all my schooling was in Kendriya Vidyalayas. Father was on a posting job profile. So, in Kendriya Vidyalayas, it's a very regular, normal schooling, very grounded. We don't really plan too much ahead. We live it by the day, play, enjoy, don't do too much of ambitious planning. So, that was the kind of lifestyle we had. And all of us, we grew up in this kind of a lifestyle in Kendriya Vidyalayas. And then life had its own path for us ready as we finished our schooling.
You see, 80s and 90s, normally typical middle class families used to be very happy doing graduation. Either they used to go to professional courses, or if they decide not to go to professional courses, away for the government jobs, competitive exams, and join in a government job. So, under this circumstances, in those circumstances and the scenario, how the thought of becoming a pilot crossed your mind?
So in those days, I'm talking of late 90s, early 90s, sorry, it was either engineering or a medical profession for most of us standard ones. Some one odd people used to get into commerce or some other fields. I never was too keen for engineering as such, medical of course too much of studies. So I just thought of doing something which is slightly different from these. So I was fascinated with flying. Flying was something which is very adventurous and I used to really enjoy with this aspect of life. But being from a background where there was nobody else in the defense, so I thought, okay, how do I go about it? So I filled up the form for something called the NDA National Defense Academy. It's a very tough exam, UPSC exam. My father was aware, but my mother was not aware because I'm sure she won't encourage me because more out of love and nothing else, affection. So I luckily passed the exam. Once I told her, obviously she supported. Then of course we have a lot of fear and everything, but yeah, she knew that everybody is supporting, so why not? So since I was the first person in the family to go into the defense at that time, and that's how I ended up into NDA and I joined the defense forces.
As you said that nobody was in your family was there in armed forces, so were your parents supportive to begin with?
Yeah, once I got through, they were very supportive because to become a pilot in those days, commercial aspects are ruled out because it's too expensive. A normal middle class family does not think of becoming a commercial pilot. So in case you want to become a pilot, then the only option which opens up is the defense. And being from a family which is a very straightforward, simple family with very good high moral ethics, national ideas. So defense comes naturally. We really don't think too much about that because if you do the same flying in the military in the Indian Air Force, then you're doing something for the country also. So it just comes hand in hand with that.
So the reason for going to armed forces is to become a pilot, or if you are not become a pilot, still would have continued in the armed forces.
Absolutely, there's no doubt in that, because first thing is to become a pilot, and from that background, only way to become a pilot is to being in the defense. So there was no other way out for me. So it just came naturally to think of defense, think of the Indian Air Force, and then join the Air Force as a pilot.
I understand becoming a fighter pilot is a very, very tough training point of view, physical, mental conditioning, and everything. Can you explain how much it takes to becoming a fighter pilot?
Yeah, so the entire process of becoming a fighter pilot has a lot of elements. First element is the physical fitness part, because you're exposed to a fighter aeroplane which a lot of high G, and conditions are very hot, humid, extreme conditions. Then it requires a lot of mental toughness, because you're a single pilot mostly. Everything you have to handle on your own. You require adequate reserves of intellect, because there's no backup plan. Then in case you get into a combat situation, you have to have that kind of a determination to come out of that. The entire training process is very long, requires a lot of endurance. So it has multiple stages of difficulty level, and eventually when you join the fighter training, and by the time you come back after 3-4 years, come out of that, it requires excellent in-depth knowledge and application. So to become a fighter pilot definitely is not so easy. But yeah, the entire process in the Indian Air Force is so streamlined that it's quite smooth, and if somebody is hardworking with a lot of sincerity and determination, he can get through the various levels.
Okay. One in a million become a fighter pilot, and when you ultimately achieve this, the dream of your life to become a pilot first, then maybe a fighter pilot. How did you feel when you sat in the cockpit for the first time in your life?
There are so many. There's so much of emotion, and there's so many things involved when you complete a journey. When we start the journey, it's at the basic stage somewhere in Dundigal in Hyderabad. I still remember way back when I did my first solo on the Kiran, and I looked on the right. I did not see the instructor there. I was thinking how to land the aeroplane. But yeah, like I said, the training is so methodical. It works out to go and land. Then first time I did my solo on Hunter. Hunter is a British aeroplane. I was just thinking it's 1950s aeroplane. I'm flying it in the 90s. Will I manage it? But yeah, things fall into place. First time you get airborne and do, let's say, armament. You fire guns, you fire rockets, you do combat. Everything has got its own charm, and it's very, very strong memories. I flew my swing wing aeroplane called MiG-27, in which I did the Kargil War later. The first time I did solo on that itself is also clear in my memory. Because when you fly aeroplane at 350, 400 kilometers per hour, and you flying, maneuvering, landing, taking off, the entire references to speed change. We're used to a 50, 60 kilometers per hour, and there you're looking at speeds which are into 100. In fact, I still remember my first time I was learning how to move the aeroplane on the ground. My instructor told me, you drive a bike, please you drive like that. I told him, sir, I don't know how to drive a bike. So he actually stopped the aeroplane and said, you come to learn a jet aeroplane, you don't know how to drive a bike. So this was a shock which he had. So but yeah, I'm sure all of us learn and we adapt to the changing environment. And the entire journey definitely has been excellent, very, very amazing for me and for every fighter pilot in this world. That's the way it is.
Being a pilot and flying a aircraft is a very, very tough thing. I know, a very difficult thing. But if you want to compare commercial pilots and other pilots, compared to them, how difficult it is to be a fighter pilot?
Actually, to tell you frankly, I've flown fighters, I've flown transport, I've flown unmanned aerial vehicles, and now I'm into commercial flying. I strongly believe all flying is beautiful, because the heart of the pilot is inside the cockpit. So whichever plane you're flying, once the cockpit closes and you start and you get airborne, it's so thrilling, it's so adventurous, it doesn't matter. It's just that the process to become a pilot in that aeroplane is different, because of the requirements are different. Once you go through all the training stages and you become one with the machine, it's like you and machine, both of you, slowly you start merging into one single soul. When you reach that stage, it's so beautiful that it doesn't matter which plane you fly. Finally, each plane is doing its own role. A commercial airplane is doing a role of commercial carriage of passengers and cargo, whereas a helicopter or a military fighter or a military cargo is doing a role of which is very specific to the military, like dropping of weapons or supporting forward area or closer combat, or whatever be the role. So I think each role is different, but eventually once you understand that aspect, I think all flying is very beautiful.
See, unfortunately, a lot of fighter pilots, especially MiG-21 and other pilots, keep crashing, and in most of the cases, fighter pilots get killed at a very young age. When we listen such things, does it scare your parents, your family members, children, and you, if at all, it scares you?
So definitely what you're saying is there is some amount of truth in that, because the pilots are the ones who out of their passion or love have joined the military and to fly those planes. So they view the machines differently. For a parent or a family, it's a son who has gone, or a daughter now who has gone to take up a job, and he or she has got killed. Having said that, I think as a soldier or as a military pilot, we don't really think too much into that. We do our job. It's just that we have sometimes old aeroplanes, sometimes we fly at the edge of extremes of our limitations of the machine or the human. Sometimes we fly taking risks because we have to undertake some tasks like military or combat or rescue operations. So we have inherent risk involved in military flying. We understand that and we undertake those missions. Things happen. Most of the pilots are young who are flying these aeroplanes. So it's a part of our duty, I think, that we have to accept that as it is.
Okay. Nachiketa, now we come to the life-defining moment of your life, the Kargil War. You may answer to the extent you can, and
Sure.
Permitted to answer, and whatever you cannot share, you can skip that.
Sure.
Where were you at the time when you got a call to go to Kargil War?
Yeah, so there was a base in Punjab called Adampur. I was posted there, and when the ground surface movements started in the Kashmir area where the Kargil took place, that is when the build-up took place about 2-3 weeks ago, and we were told to be ready. So when Air Force talks of being ready or being prepared, we start moving to our op locations. Okay. So from Adampur we moved to a place called Srinagar in Kashmir. That is when we started.
Okay. When you were assigned, what generally you were assigned? You were supposed to enter into the enemy territory and bomb and come back to Indian territory?
No, Kargil was very specific because our Prime Minister did not want it to escalate into a full-scale war. So the orders were very clear to the Indian Air Force not to cross the LOC. So although the intruders had crossed into our side from across, orders to us were very clear not to cross the LOC, fight the war from our side of the LOC only, and evict the intruders.
Okay. We all heard and of course listened and read that your fighter pilot was shot down and you ejected from the plane. So what happened that day? You went into the sortie, entered into the enemy area territory and bombed them, and then you were shot down, or did it happen in the Indian territory?
Okay, so the entire mission which we undertook was on the Indian side. So at no stage any of our formation members crossed over to the other side because of the orders which came from the highest level. Okay. So we did a bombing mission on the enemy targets which were on our side. After the mission got over, we dropped the weapons, and as we were about to come back, I had engine failure. Okay. So when we have engine failure, there is a process to start the engine, but we require some height for that. Now, because the terrain is very high in that Kashmir part of Kargil, it's almost at 15,000 feet plus. So my engine started the relight, but I ran out of the height. So once I ran out of the height, only way is to eject. So I ejected in that area. Now, where I ejected, that is our side of LOC, but the intruders made contact with me first because they had come onto our side. Okay. So unfortunately for me, I was one of those valleys where their men were there. Had I been in the next valley, maybe I would have connected with my guys first. And then we had a small ambush. I fired at them, they fired at me, but I ran out of my bullets. And when I ran out of my bullets, they captured me and they took me across. Okay, that means when you landed, you were in the Indian territory. When you were surrounded by the Pakistani forces, you were in Indian territory. Then you were taken to Pakistan territory. Yes. Even after being captured, I was taken to a campsite, which also was on our side.
Okay.
After about 8 days, when our enemy, our ground forces took over that area, which was our area, that entire area, we had our own forces sitting there.
Okay.
But on that day, that is on 27th of May 99, when I ejected, at that time our enemy was sitting in that area.
Okay. You see, this ejecting from the plane, sometimes we see in the movies, I always wonder, this is a one-time life experience, because you might not have done it practically, maybe some simulations might have definitely happened during your training. So when your aeroplane was shot, how much of time you have to eject, and was it a fully successful ejection from the plane and a safe landing? Did you have any experience, any problem in ejecting and landing?
Yeah, so the ejection process as such is very fast because things happen very fast. It can happen because of ejection can happen because we have very less time to leave the aeroplane. It could be because of engine flame out or a fire or in a combat situation. In my case, I had engine failure and I was about to crash into the hills before the engines have relight. So if my engines don't pick up sustainable RPM, which means I open the power and by own engine power I start flying back again. If I don't reach that stage, before that the ground or the mountains start gushing towards me, I have no option but to eject. So that split second decision to leave the aeroplane happens, and within a second or two, I have my seat along with my parachute have to leave the aeroplane, because if that is delayed, then I crash along the aeroplane. So it happens very fast. Within a second or 2 seconds, my parachute comes out, seat comes out, and the chute deploys, and I start coming down. So things happen very fast. It leads to injuries definitely, because the G can go up to 20 G. On the ground, we are exposed to 1 G. In this case, it can go up to 20 G. So yeah, the injuries do take place, especially for tall people, and if posture is not very good. We have back problems. Like I had a compression sickness. I had a multiple compression on my dorsal 3, 4, 5. So these things happen. And if you are not careful after landing, you can have head injuries, you can have physical bruises. So all these things do take place. Luckily for me, I landed on the snow. It was all snow covered, so that saved me from any physical injuries on touchdown.
Okay. Now I read in the newspapers that there was some fire exchange between you and the Pakistan Armed Forces. You were in the Air Force. Were you trained to use pistols and other arms while being a pilot also?
Yes. All combatants, whatever be the work we are doing in the Air Force, all combatants we undergo training to fire small arms and bigger ones. As a fighter pilot, since we can't carry a big weapon inside the aeroplane, we are especially tuned to fire small arms and carry them along with us in person. So in this case, I was carrying something called a Makarov 9mm pistol, which we train on the small arms range.
What was the feeling across your mind when you realized that you landed in the Indian territory but surrounded by the Pakistani armed forces?
So there's something called the comfort level for a fighter pilot, which is there when you're sitting inside the aeroplane with 25,000 kgs of thrust behind you, flight controls which can take the plane wherever you want. So this entire process gives you a lot of comfort. So once you're out of this comfort zone where you are suddenly in hostile territory, sub-zero temperatures, 15 to 17,000 of altitude where oxygen is depleted, even physical movement from place A to place B become a problem. So and of course, in my case, there were guns being fired at me, and I was not sure from where they were being fired. So obviously, all these things lead to some kind of a surprise element or a shock element on what might happen next, which is not what you would like to do.
Okay. In the same day, or I think few days this side or that side, we heard that an unfortunate incident of squadron leader Ajay Ahuja, two landed after his aircraft was shot down. I don't know whether it is Indian territory or Pakistan territory, but unfortunately he was immediately shot dead and very brutally killed. But in your case, when you were also surrounded by Pakistani armed forces, you were safely taken into the custody. So do you give credit to the bunch of people who surrounded you?
Yeah, Ahuja sir's case happened almost along with my case. In his case, I think it was not the regular army forces which captured him, but militants who obviously have very less moral ethics and standards. In my case, in a way, I was fortunate that the people who captured me firstly were the regular army forces. Secondly, even the army Jawans wanted to kill me after capturing me, but the officer who came there was very mature. He told them that he was doing his duty, and now that he is a captive, you need not kill him. So that was very lucky for me that I was very fortunate that that person came in time to save me.
The days you were in captive, I think 1 week or so, must be the most traumatic days in your life. How were you scared? And if you were scared, how much you were scared at that point of time? What are the things crossing your mind? Remembering the family and friends, and of course, especially your motherland. So, what was the level of hope that you will come back and see all of them as fortunately you did?
Actually, it's a very big thing which you asked. 8 long days and nights of captivity, in which you have so many emotions and so many thoughts. But in a nutshell, let me just cover. Firstly, I had no hope of coming back because normally people who go across, even 1971, we have so many cases who are still prisoners. Having said that, I am basically optimist. I never gave up hope, so I always thought things will fall into place. Second, since I had no hope practically of going back, so the element of fear as such was not there, because if you are absolutely sure that things will not work out the way you want, then there is a lesser chance of being scared of the happenings. And the way the entire process takes place is when you are a prisoner of war in a hostile situation, you are not given any time to think. So when there is no time to think, then mentally you are engaged all the time and things happen continuously. So that obviously puts a lot of limitations on what you can think and what you can conclude and what you can plan. And finally you said parents, yeah. Definitely that was one thing which was always bugging me, whether I'll come back or not, because we as soldiers, we are duty bound, but as parents, they have a slightly different take on life. Obviously, in my case, my parents were very, very graceful, and they were during the entire process, I believe they were thinking of the other pilots, other combatants, other soldiers who were fighting the war, and they wanted to be sure that whatever they project, whatever comes to the media is very dignified. But I'm sure internally they were also very worried and very concerned, because they also realized that I've gone across and I may not come back. So that's the way it is.
At that time, you may not be knowing, but there is a tremendous media coverage about your being captured. And I remember every news channel, the news used to start with your news, showing your some of the old photographs. And you must be knowing that at that time I had a cassette recorder, and I recorded about 45-50 minutes of coverage of whatever happened at that point of time. And your family, as you said, that taken it very strongly and gracefully, but made representations to the defense minister, prime minister, president. They done a lot for you. And when you came back, you might have gone through all these in the newspapers and TV channels. How do you feel about that?
Once again, we don't live life in retrospect. So when they were happening, when I came back, they were happening live, and it's very important for us not to lose the perspective. So one of the first things, once I met up with my family and we spent some time and we realized that things are okay now. One of the first things which I realized was that the war is still on. We're losing a lot of soldiers on the border. So I requested my air chief that I want to be off the media so that the focus shifts back to them and not on me. He said it's very difficult because media wants you. I said that's fine, but we have to think of all the soldiers also who are losing their life and who are being killed there. So that was one of the first things which I thought, that all this is temporary. It's just because I was in a fighter plane that I got so much of visibility and so much of media attention. Otherwise, I'm just one of the soldiers who was doing the job. So fortunately for me, the chief understood, and once the interrogation part got over, I was sent back to my camp, and then media was told not to engage with me. So that in a way slowly diluted my presence in the media and focus shifted back to the soldiers.
That's a good thing you have thought of at such a young age, and that should be the way it is. I remember you answering to the media that I'm a soldier. I really...
Yeah, because somebody asked me whether you're a hero or something. Yeah. I said I'm just a soldier doing his part. All of us there are doing the same thing. Actually, there's no difference. Whether I'm in a plane fighting rockets or missiles, or on the ground firing a gun or doing hand-to-hand combat, or on a ship or a submarine. All of us are doing a part for the nation. There's no difference. Just where we are, our roles are different. That's all.
In a dramatic fashion, President Musharraf has announced releasing a few to the press first, then you have been released with a big fanfare. I've seen all that footage to Wagah border and other things. So who gave this good news to you that you will be released, and how relieved you felt when you heard that news?
So the way these things work, these people are very careful because till the end things might change. So
Yeah.
really frankly, from across that side, nobody told me actually I'm being released. It's just that their attitude changed. Finally, I got some clothes to wear, some food to eat. Some people were having a different kind of language talking to me, so I could make out some things had changed. And then they handed me over to the International Red Cross in Rawalpindi. So once I reached there, I realized that now I'm being handed over to some other team. Obviously, this meant that I was being shifted to the Indian Embassy, and obviously within a few hours after all the medical tests and formalities, I was shifted to the Indian Embassy. So when I reached the embassy, that was the first time when I entered the embassy premises. I saw 110 Indians welcoming me there. It was a very, very emotional moment. That was the first time after 8 days I realized I'm alive. I'm no longer a captive. I'm free. I'll get back to India shortly, meet my parents, my family, my sisters, and that was the first emotional high for me. That okay, the worst part for me is over, and now only the good part starts. So that is the way I look at it. So that moment of entering the embassy and meeting everybody and all of them crying and coming and touching me, hugging me, touching my feet, these kind of things happening, that is what really was first touching moment for me. Second, of course, was when I came back to India. I crossed the Wagah border. On the Pakistani side, just 2-3 people were there. On our side, wherever I could see, there were people, lakhs of people to welcome me. That again was an excellent moment to, when I think back, that the love and affection of all our citizens, of people, when they welcome back a soldier who's come back from across, that really shows as a nation how strong we are when this difficult moment comes. And of course, third was when I reached the Palam airport, when I met my parents, my sisters, my uncle, auntie, in-laws, everybody was there to meet, receive me. And of course, that was definitely the moment which I was waiting for so long, to come meet them, because as a family member, when they see the son or a brother or a nephew or somebody come back, that is really so important for them.
You received an unprecedented welcome at the Wagah border, and when you came to Delhi, I remember Defence Minister was there to receive you. I think setting all the protocols aside, and then of course you were driven straight away to the Prime Minister's residence and the President's residence. And how did you feel about it? Of course, it's a dramatic situation, no doubt about it. But meeting the Prime Minister and President of India was a thing which you might not have thought of in your life. So can you share your experiences of meeting the Prime Minister and President of India?
Actually, when these things happen in a very systematic or a planned way, when you have time to think about it, there's a build-up. You practice, you train, and you reach that stage when you go and meet them. You thought about everything. So that is the way it happens. It should happen. In my case, like you said, firstly, we never think of meeting them. Secondly, it all happened post episode of 8 days of trauma and excessive mental, physical, emotional pressure. So when I came back, it was as if I was in a trance. Things were just happening, and I was moving as if life was moving in a slow motion, and I just kept meeting people, Prime Minister, President, Chief, Defence Minister, Chief. So all these things just fell into place from one step to the next. Except meeting my parents, my family, my sisters, this part, which actually was very important to me. The other part was just requirements of the organization which were being fulfilled. That is the way I look at it. But of course, the way they spoke to me, the respect for the fighter pilots or the soldiers, that definitely was what made it so special, because it so happened that it was Nachiketa, but actually they were meeting the Indian Air Force pilot who had just done a job for his continuous comeback. So that respect for that was very, very evident.
You must have gone through a lot of trauma, maybe physical torture or mental torture during the captivity. So how did you manage those 8 days when you were in captive? And after releasing, did you carry the trauma, if at all anything is there? And how did you come over that? How much of help the family did to come out of the trauma?
Definitely, it's a very intense trauma because whatever training we have is on paper or it's all academic. But when you go through it physically, it's a different ballgame altogether. I still remember when I came back, almost for about 3 to 4 months, I could not get good sleep. I used to get disturbed. It almost took 6 months to start getting a good sleep. Even 2 to 3 years after I returned back, I was avoiding seeing movies or scenes with interrogation because that used to lead to some kind of a flashback of the trauma. If I used to narrate my incident anywhere which was required for me to go and talk to people, once it used to again take some time to come out of that and come back to some kind of semblance. So yeah, it was a long process, but I got full support from the military. I went through the psychologist. They said everything is fine. Just go and spend time with family, take some leave. Then all my unit, I'm part of 9 Squadron Wolfpack. All the members of my squadron, they supported me a lot in getting back to a normal life. My family, parents stayed with me for a long time. All other family members, sisters, in-laws, everybody kept coming and meeting me for a long time just to see that everything is fine. Friends were there for all. So the ecosystem was there to ensure that everything was fine. I came back to normal life and get back to a normal operational flying in the Air East. But of course, I was medically down to do fighters again. So I took some time to get back to my fitness and then I shifted to non-ejection seat, which is transport airplanes.
Yeah, that I remember. I think you were shifted to transport this thing.
Yes.
You used to fly from Chandigarh to Leh.
Yeah.
In fact, incidentally, I was there in Chandigarh at that point of time. So, what was it a requirement that you have to be taken off from the fighter pilot duties, or it was your choice?
No, there was no choice. It was a medical requirement because when you eject, like I covered earlier, we may have an injury. In my case, I had an injury, and I had a multiple collapse, dorsal 3, 4, 5. So in case of a multiple collapse, in case I have a second ejection, my body may not take that and I may have a permanent damage. So as a precaution, when doctors feel that it's not advisable to continue in an ejection seat aeroplane, they will recommend you to fly a non-ejection seat.
Okay.
So that's why I shifted to a non-ejection, which is a transport airplane. So I shifted to transports.
Okay. After the Kargil War, how long did you continue with the armed forces, and what is the reason that you took a break? You left the services and didn't continue after that?
Actually, this happened in '99 and I retired in 2017, so that's almost 18 years. So I did my 22 years service. Usually after around that time is when you stop flying in the Air Force, you get into pure management. But I wanted to continue flying. So in civil you can continue flying till the age of 65. So I decided to just come outside and continue flying, that's all.
Okay. Compared to your fighter pilot and armed commercial pilot, armed transport vehicle, how different it is to fly a commercial flight, and how different it is to work in a private organization compared to working in the armed forces?
Actually, all flying again is good. It's whether you fly a state-of-the-art Airbus with a lot of technology and computerization, everything, or you don't fly. Finally, it's all flying, and all flying is good. Obviously, because I'm carrying passengers here, and we have a lot of legal implications, and safety margins are very high, and everything is in place. So, as far as a private company is concerned, when you're flying in the Air Force, you're flying for the nation. When you're flying in a private company, you're flying for yourself. So I think that's the only difference. Otherwise, if a private company like where I am working is a good company and well managed, I think it's good fun to fly anywhere.
In the beginning, we discussed about conservative South Indian families, especially Brahmin Telugu families, really scared of sending their sons or daughters to armed forces. The same must be the case for offering their daughter to somebody who is working in armed forces. So when we are looking for alliances, was it difficult for you to get a match because you were a fighter pilot?
I'm not sure, but one thing I told my parents was not to search for a match for at least 2 years till the time things cooled down, which eventually worked out. And after that, once we searched for a match, I think I found a good partner in my wife Prashanti, and we just took one meeting and we decided that was it. So it was pretty fast.
Okay, that's good. What about your children? Are they fascinated to fly like you, or are they taking different routes?
very frankly, they are part of the next generation where I think the next generation, especially boys, they take some time to get some clarity in life what they want. So as of now, although they are 18 and 16, they still don't know what they want in life except play a lot of sports and outdoor games, which is good. I'm very happy for that. So I just want them to figure out on their own. Let them finish college. Whichever stage they figure out whatever they want, they are most welcome. As of now, at this age, I don't see that passion or that drive to become a pilot or a fighter pilot or a soldier. So I leave it to them because it's finally their choice.
Nachiketa, you might have flown thousands of hours. Does flying still thrills you the way it used to thrill you in 20s? And are any plans to ground yourself soon?
Absolutely. If I get back to my, let's say, one example, when I was in Chandigarh, we used to go to Leh, Ladakh almost every day 2 or 3 times, and I must have gone there thousands of times. Every time I used to come out of the aeroplane and see the mountains, Himalayas, I used to be so thrilled. It is the same now itself. Even now when I go for flying, it might be slightly more adventurous or challenging in terms of day and night or circadian rhythms or long duty hours. But still, once you go to the aeroplane and sit and the cockpit door closes, it's a different world. So I think whatever be the nature of flying, it will be always be very, very divine and beautiful. So as of now, I'm just 50, so I'm looking at least 15 more years of flying ahead of me.
Oh, great. That's wonderful to know. That's all, Nachiketa. Thank you very much. You see, can you imagine? I'm thinking of having a conversation like this for the last 20 years. Of course, initially I thought there must be some restrictions from your armed forces to share the things. Then, of course, I was not into this, conversation modes with people. I also grew in confidence and started recording conversations. So, when I started, the first man I had in mind used to interview you and to know all about Kargil and to tell people what are the things they don't know. Of course, to the extent you are permitted to share that. And today, of course, you shared a lot of things which people don't know and which I didn't know. And you are also, very, very tight as far as your schedule is concerned. My schedule is also so tight with my daughter's marriage around the corner, and we are almost at midnight, 12 o'clock. And we took this chance, that's why it's happened. Thank you very much, and it was nice talking.
Thank you so much. I really enjoyed and wish you all the best ahead in all your projects.
Thank you. Thank you so much.
Thank you so much. When I started my hunters.
Okay, this is the first flight.
First fighters. Okay. After hunters, we went to MiG-27. This is the plane on which I flew the Kargil.
This is the Kargil flight.
So once I got Kargil got over, then I met the Prime Minister.
Yeah, that I know.
Then I met the President.
Okay.
And I got this award, Gallantry Award.
Okay.
After this got over, then I shifted to transport when I got medically grounded. That is the plane I flew Donius.
Okay.
After Donius, I came to AN-32s.
This is which place?
AN-32, this is Jorat.
Okay.
Assam. Then I came to IL-78, this is the aerial refuelers. It's the same.
Okay.
So after I finished up my flying, then I went to commander unit called the Unmanned Aerial Vehicles. So this is the one I commanded in Bathinda.
Okay.
And then I retired from here.
From here you retired, no? This is the Prime Minister Vajpayee, no? Okay, that's great, yeah.
This is the training, NDA training, Pune.
This is the thing given.
And this is the retirement, what we get from the Air Force.
Okay. It's nice.